I work with Autodesk. Started my Autodesk journey in Singapore and been completely almost 9 years, and then moved to the Dubai office. Been in the industry for 19 plus years. I worked in India, I worked in Middle East, I worked in Southeast Asia, based in Singapore, covering the ASEAN region. And I have been one of those early adopters of BIM processes and the BIM technology, let's put it this way. So I have been training, I have been helping implementing, and I have been working as a BIM manager, especially for the MEP segment of it on my own. So this is about me, but before I move further, I just want to understand who has joined today. So I'm going to run a couple of a few polls, and which should be on your screen right now. So if you can just quickly take part in the poll number 1 on your screen. Question is very simple. Are you an engineer, architect, or other? All right, let's give it a few more seconds. Thank you for the participation. I can see a very good participation in this poll. Thank you. And I can tell you majority today is engineer. So we can talk about architects. Very good. Now, let me just go to close to next one. Just want to understand whether you belong to like a design firm, or you are part of a project management firm, or you're part of a construction firm, or an owner operator, or maybe I missed the one which you belong to. Let's give a few more seconds. Perfect. Thank you for that response. And I'm going to go to the next one, which is going to ask you about your role. I have some of those roles defined here, but this is not limited to. You can also choose which is closest to what you do. Right. Thank you for the response. I can see majority of responses are here. So I'm going to go to the next one, which is the last one for the day as a poll at the beginning. So this is something which I would appreciate, because I want to understand if you have heard about the BIM, if yes or no. I mean, how long? Less than 1 year, less than 5 years, or more than 5 years, kind of thing. So we just so that we can see what is the audience mix here. All right, thank you for your responses once again. And this is very interesting, because I can see majority today in the session is either not using BIM, or less than 1 year. So I will keep it in that way. Thank you for your responses. Now let's get started and think about how we're going to do today. Now, first thing, I just want to make sure that you are able to see the screen. So today's webinar agenda is formulated to discuss the 3 phases of BIM with 10 steps to achieve BIM workflow. So that is the agenda, 3 phases of BIM. Now, what do I mean by 3 phases of BIM is we always, based on any new technology processes, we always come across these 3 phases, and BIM is not any indifferent. We always start with the curiosity about what is BIM. We discuss what is BIM in detail, which impacts you as an individual and a company. Once you become familiar with BIM, there is a valid question of why should you invest time and money in such a process? What's the ROI and how does it impact you for the personal growth and company vision and goals? Once the decision is being made, you will decide how and who will help to implement the BIM across a project or a company. So let's get started with very simple thing first. What is BIM? I'm going to briefly introduce about what is BIM. And I have a video. I'm not sure you can hear the sounds. I'm going to skip that one for a moment, and we'll go to the slide directly. So BIM is an integrated workflow. So we're talking about a workflow here. So just think about the people. I see that people have not using BIM. So BIM is not a software, to put it in the correct perspective. BIM is an integrated workflow. It's a process. So it's an integrated workflow built on coordinated, reliable information about a project from design through construction and its operations. By adopting BIM processes, architects, engineers, contractors, and owners can easily create coordinated digital design information and documentation. Use this information to accurately predict performance, appearance, and cost, and reliably deliver the project faster, more economically, and with a reduced environment impact. 3 key components on BIM are: BIM is a workflow or a process, may be referred as a business process for an owner audience. BIM requires high quality, coordinated, internally consistent information that can be relied on. BIM extends across the design, construction, and operations of a project. Now, BIM, or building information modeling, starts from the essential idea of physical design and considers the question about how the physical elements, components of architecture, mechanical structure, interior, site context can be represented as both geometry and information for a wide range of applications from the beginning and throughout the life cycle of a project. BIM applies to all phases of the building or infrastructure project, starting right from planning to concept design to operations or maintenance, even the renovation or retrofitting. Every stakeholder in the BIM lifecycle has proven benefits of using BIM processes and methodologies. The objective of model-based construction is to develop an understanding about project, particularly with respect of cost and scheduling, and to resolve potential coordination issues before work begins in the field. On the left here, what you see is what we call the input side. The BIM process for construction professionals starts with the collection of discipline-specific models: architecture, MEP, structure, civil. These models not only represent the geometry of the desired outcome, but also contain the underlying data about the objects such as type, size, material, and other metadata relevant to that type of object. So this information can be aggregated into a single multidiscipline model. On the output side, on the right side, the model is used to create construction documents during design development. One advantage of BIM is the ability to get various views and details directly from the model. In this case, a fully coordinated model with all the disciplines. The information stays coordinated and changes made to the model update automatically in the construction drawings. And the benefit of BIM process is the ability to visualize the project before construction starts. This extends valuable information from designers to contractors and owners for a better understanding of how the building will be built and what it will look like. Contractors need accurate and easily accessible information about material schedules, phasing, and multidiscipline coordination. Quantities can be pulled out from the model, updated as model design changes. 4D sequencing, or we call it time planning, or planning with the construction phase animation, allows construction managers to see how the project is being built and explore if logical scenarios. Finally, the model data can be extended for additional construction tasks such as cost estimating, project planning, scheduling, and by using BIM, process contractors also can deliver project more economically, more efficiently, and in a more predictable manner. Now, what is very important to put you in a caution mode is that, so BIM, it does not equal to a 3D model. So 3D model does not equal to BIM. This is very important if you consider this one. So if the information is missing with the 3D component, it isn't a BIM model. So what is a BIM model? If it has information, if that information is not there, if it is just a 3D, whether you use a BIM authoring software or not a BIM authoring software, if you do not maintain the information with that, it is just another 3D model. And information is the key data we are creating using, sharing, and in the BIM workflow. So when you look at the BIM, what you can also refer BIM as a process change of digitizing from drawings to models and paper to digital. Something like an example from a paper drawing to taking the BIM model on site with you. So we're also looking at an example from an infrastructure industry, where you could see that whether you take something with you in a piece of drawing, or you can take a model with you on a construction site. So this is connected insights. We are going to look like. So when we talk about so the project data, we talk about this project data, workflows, and we talk about how the BIM can help us in getting this information in a very timely, accurate, and coordinated manner. Now, this is very important from that aspect when we look at it. So as a project owner or a stakeholder, you and others are making thousands of decisions which will impact the success of your project. It is difficult to make a good, sound decision without good data. Data is compiled to create information, and information is basis to provide you with knowledge. Knowledge is used to make an actual decision. It's all about improving the decision-making process. Decision-making always starts with the data. Having the right data in the right format and accessible to right people. Otherwise, everyone uses rules of thumb, which will gonna take you in a different scenario. So if you wanna have that informed decision-making, you have to work with the data. Now, in order to illustrate the overall goal, the CEO of HOK, Patrick McLeamy, contributed this chart. In this chart, what you're going to see is the blue line. In the blue line is a typical traditional project as a progress moves from preliminary design to documentation and into construction phase. It is clear that the ability to impact the cost and functional capabilities decline. Red line, which is the next line, is the and inversely the cost of site changes are more and more expensive as we move closer to the construction phases. The black line, what you see is a traditional design process enabled by CAD, focusing majority of team efforts during the construction or documentation phase. Little effort is put to preliminary and schematic design phases and less after the drawings are created. This means that changes occurring during this phase and even more so in the construction will be close, going to cost very, very high. Then we're talking about the green line in collaborative design process where key stakeholders are brought in earlier. Clear goals are set. The preferred design processes would actually shift efforts much earlier in the design cycle, spending more time upfront to make better design decisions. With the process and collaboration based around building information modeling as a catalyst, construction documents become a byproduct for the design efforts. Now, if we put BIM versus CAD, we talk about the lines and layers in a CAD environment, and we're talking about objects and categories in a BIM environment. I mean, you might have seen that every AutoCAD drawing, you control everything with a line command and associated, editing commands. Versus the BIM means we are talking about the real type of objects like walls, doors, columns, beams, ducts, pipes, which has exact information as per an engineer or as per an architect, based upon, if you are a structural engineer or a mechanical engineer, you're going to have those things as per your requirement. So this is how it looks like. You have a floor plan view, which is one representation of the same data. You can have a representation which is also happening in multiple views, as a 3D view or a section and elevation coming into those documentation. Now, BIM also, a lot of people define BIM in multiple formats. So we talk about 2D, we talk about 3D, we talk about 4D, 5D, 6D. Now, 4D is about time and the plan. With that, where we add a cost or estimation, it becomes 5D. When the use of BIM is done for facility management or operations, it becomes 6D, and then sustainability becomes 7D. So these are just some of the names you might hear me talking further or in the industry. So this is the definition of these what we talk about. Now, if you want to remember what exactly BIM is for rest of your life, so the BIM, or I can say, is a process where we capture we use 3D models to capture, explore, and maintain consistent and coordinated planning, design, and construction and operation data. So we use a 3D model to capture it and explore that data. And why? Because it's gonna provide greater project insights for cost, schedule, and constructability. We're gonna use and share this data downstream and in the office as well as in the field. It also enables prompt responses with if there are any changes, which is going to help us to do a much better, faster design decision makes and all that. Now I'm going to quickly move to another phase. This is why should I invest? So if you consider what is BIM about and how this how this is applicable. Now there is always a question: why should I invest? What is my ROI on all that? So before I go to the ROI factor, I just want to bring in this survey which is available in the industry, which says 60% of the major capital projects fail to meet the cost. That means majority of the big projects, they are always over budget and they are always behind the schedule. And we also talk about 30% of the construction cost is rework, which is true. I mean, most of these things, because of coordination issues and all that, when we say construction cost is rework, it is the wastage of material, time, as well as manpower. We also talk about the maintenance, and we have industry-prone data which says 55% of maintenance remains reactive. So when we talk about reactive, not proactive, that's where the problem starts in. Now, when we talk about why should we invest? So at the business leadership level, project owners are primarily concerned with predictability, reliability, and quality. Project managers for owners are concerned with the project constraints of time, cost, and scope. Public entities and private entities have different motivators. The project director or a manager whom we typically talk to are concerned with managing the risk in the project. They need to balance the relationship between time, cost, and quality. If the scope or quality increases, then the time and costs are impacted, typically. Each project will have different constraints. For example, project budget is fixed and the quality must be reduced. For projects such as Olympics, the schedule is fixed, therefore the cost and quality becomes a variable. Here are some of those issues that owners typically face. How can we better manage our projects and service providers? How can we be smarter using data we design or we have? How can we better get the right data to the right people at the right time in the right format? How can we expect our contractors to make our projects more successful? How can we transit design data into operations faster and better? For the public sector, fear or failure is a major motivator. Politicians do not want to get over budget. They have to do more with the less. Having good data is becoming more critical in the development of our buildings or infrastructure. So this is whenever we talk about the cost, quality, and time and scope. This is where we're talking about the drivers of BIM in a project. Now, there's also this study which is done. We talk about value of having a lonely BIM versus integrated BIM. Now, it's a study done by Journal of Building Information Modeling in way back in 2010, validated in 14, which talks about change order, or we call it variation orders. If we have a project which is on 2D, we are looking around 16% of variation orders, 16 to 18%. On that. So similarly, if we're talking about the 3D lonely BIM, maybe the consultants are using, or only the architects are using BIM. We still see some good, ROI in terms of saving change order quantities, but still it's higher. It's on the higher side. Versus if we have all the stakeholders on the project on a collaborative sharing or using BIM. So we typically actually see less than 3% of change orders, which is a huge saving for a project, which is gonna, because these variation or change orders not only impact cost, they impact time and quality as well. And again, based upon the McGraw-Hill construction, in 2014, we can see there, as per owners, they do see the greater, cost, predictability around 72% of them. There are, improved timing or schedule with around 85%. There are very few errors, 85% agree on that. The design is optimized, and the better understanding of the design happens with that. We also see where the users are actually using BIM for. Some of those users, for example, visualization, you can see around 65% people are using it for visualization. The visualization means actually going and understanding the physical characteristics between multiple services. I'm not talking about a visualization only of creating the walkthroughs and all that. It's about visualizing the data. Similarly, clash detection and how it can reduce the errors and omissions. We're looking at the very increasing trend in the building design, and owners and developers are demanding the as-built BIM models. Is also increasing. We're looking people are using BIM for construction sequencing or planning. We are looking for code reviewing, where we see most of the government agencies are looking to automate the process of reviewing using BIM, and we're looking at people using BIM for fabrication. We're looking at people using the BIM data for green building analysis or sustainability lead certifications, as well as there has been an increase in forensic analysis when people actually try to claim, and then BIM comes into a savior in there. Now, if we look at another reason why we should be investing in BIM is the mandate. Since 2016, for example, since 2016, public projects in the UK required fully collaborative 3D BIM. Also, the BIM mandates of Germany, Federal Ministry of Transport and Digital Infrastructure, is moving into force. BIM is to be applied on all new public transport projects procured in Germany from end of 2020 onwards. The Federal Infrastructure Investment Plan will provide 270 billion euros until 2030 to be invested in infrastructure and to stimulate the application of BIM. German Rail also mandates BIM onwards from 2020, flanked by huge investment in rail networks and train stations. In APAC, for example, both Japanese and Korean ministries of land, infrastructure and transport and tourism have already mandated BIM for large-scale infrastructure projects starting from 2019, and announced 100% mandate for every infrastructure project by 2025. Other countries, including Brazil, China, South Korea, Singapore, and the United States, have issued similar BIM mandates of varying scope, though, and the European Union also issued a directive to its 28 member states recommending the use of BIM on the public projects. It's not just government looking to BIM, as the public sector mandates the process. Private industry has shown more interest in working with the BIM-ready teams. Contractors increasingly demand BIM on particular projects, even in countries where government mandates are not yet in the works. Private industry wants to realize the benefits of BIM on the projects, and it's easy to understand why. Right. So another question is, we always talk about help me implement BIM. This is why we're going to get started with our 10 steps of BIM. Now, if you are new, if you have not started BIM ever, I would want you to pay attention with the steps, because this is how you can make this transition to BIM in a very easy and smooth manner. So if you ask me, or if you ask someone who is familiar with BIM, and there are ways how you should get started with, and there are ways how what you should do before moving to BIM and all that. So I have put them in a 10 easy, understandable steps, so you can actually take action on them. Now, first one, or step number one, is get to know BIM. If you are not familiar with BIM, the first and very important thing is get to know BIM. Getting to know BIM means you need to designate one or two people. You do not have to shut down your operations and let everyone figure it out. It's wise to have or designate one or two people to learn more about how BIM will affect the way your teams work. Very important. If you want to make BIM successful in your company, you have to figure out how BIM will affect the way your teams work. Don't worry about how others have used BIM. It depends upon how your teams are working today, and only your people who are familiar with your system can understand the BIM. First of all, they go and learn about BIM, and then they understand how this will be, this will affect the way your teams work. For instance, in the 2D world, many firms leave the details to the later stage of the design process. With BIM, many design details need to be worked out much earlier, because they become part and parcel of a particular, when you add those walls, those details automatically fall in there. While getting to know, BIM, understand your company challenges. This is very important, which can be solved with the BIM, and you do not have to aim to fix all the issues with BIM in one go. This is one of the biggest mistakes what a lot of our companies have been doing, is they try to implement BIM and they try to do everything in BIM at the same time. It is not going to happen. BIM is a journey. You start with few benefits, you start with one goal, and over the time, you will implement other benefits and include other teams. So more important, understand how BIM is going to affect you personally and professionally. Then see how the company is going to be affected with the process change. Second, very, very important, the communicate the changes to your people. This is very important. BIM has to be an executive decision. It has to come from top, as it is not about uninstalling one software and installing another one. We are talking about business process change management. We're talking about people change. We're talking about process change. So high-level leaders should take leading role in letting people know the firm is definitely moving to BIM. Remember, it has to be a message, definitely moving to BIM. The message is we are moving to BIM because it is critical to our future, not we are trying BIM. If you just use we are trying BIM, automatically people will find their escape path of giving you the excuses of not going to BIM, because they're comfortable with what they have been doing all their career. Be sure to communicate the anticipated benefits of BIM. I mean, if you are saying we're going to do BIM, you should tell your team why exactly have you chosen to go to the BIM, because unless and until your team understands what are the benefits your firm is looking for, they might not be on board with what exactly is supposed to happen. It will be easier to rally the team around a compelling future vision, because unless and until the future vision is communicated, it is difficult for people to just say, okay, my boss said do it, I mean, I'm just doing it. Why? I don't know. If you want them to be part of the success, you should be discussing about the vision, why you have choose this one. And one more thing, don't talk much about these mandates and ifs and buts. Just focus on one challenge at a time to get started with. Then we talk about another one, which is BIM is not just software. First of all, you cannot do BIM without a software. You have to use BIM, but it's not about software. It is a collaborative process that relies on that intelligent 3D models. But you will need software to create those models. Take the time to explore available software and consider whether your current software, consider whether your hardware has sufficient processing power. Some older, less powerful hardware may need to be passed on to other teams. outside of design department, that's okay. I mean, there is always a refresh happens between the more demanding process to a low demanding process. Now, when we talk about the software, think about how you're gonna, decide about a platform. For example, Revit and Civil 3D, they become platform. Are you using or going to use all Revit or, for example, Civil 3D authoring capabilities? Decide them. You do not know them all or don't have to them incorporated in your workflow. Think about that way. Think about how you're going to work with multiple firms with multiple locations. Are you considering working with multiple locations? Do you need to shorten the distance between these names? Do you often work with other firms geographically dispersed? How do you aggregate data from multiple sources? Do you have tools for collaborating effectively? And when it comes to hardware, it's very important that what hardware do you need to efficiently execute the project? Does everyone need the same hardware or the same performance? How do you make the business case for procurement? And very important, which is often not being paid attention, is the networking. Where are your teams located and how do you connect them? How do you maximize bandwidth but minimize cost? Does your firm have adoption policy for cloud? And similarly, what would less than optimal workstation hardware result in? Poor performance, slow response time, aggregation and high stress levels of the user, inability to do some common tasks, for example, printing, exporting, or navigation of Revit model. It will not be so smooth. And at the same time, network, for example, it is performance, performance, and performance. You need to make sure that your network has a better bandwidth. You might have to reorganize the configuration, reduce the data throughput, and make sure that you use a proper gigabyte switches and all that. Now, similarly, you have to think about, as a step number 4, develop a change management plan. Now, this plan should document at a high level how your team anticipates BIM changing established workflow, who needs training, and when they will get it, and how you will support people when they have questions and issues. Support is probably the most important item. Organization changes happen faster and more successful when you help them adopt the new ways of working. If you leave people without the help they need, they will fail and they will be just frustrated with what just happened, because people are most important to the BIM adoption than any tool and the process. Think about working on the new organization responsibilities. Think about assessment, about who needs what to improve their skills. Think about the skills based upon the applications, skills based upon the workflows, and other cultural issues and all that. One of the example, for example, when we talk about the BIM here, there might be some new roles and responsibilities. I mean, typically we don't think about it, but the HR also plays a very critical role in the BIM process adoption, because the new job descriptions and the authorities needs to be given to each and every. For example, like a design manager, we might have a model manager or a Revit champion. We might have a special person who is dedicating his let's say 80-90% of his time to content creation for your firm or on a project. We might have to have each discipline. If you're a multidisciplinary firm, you might be thinking that, okay, every discipline has a BIM coordinator. You might also think about having a data coordinator. We talk about BIM coordinator. We need to have a data coordinator, because data is the key for BIM. If you are not following BIM with the information in that one, you might not think that data coordinators are needed. But if you are looking BIM and taking the BIM data into consideration, data coordinators are vital to make sure the data consistency, data authenticity, and everything is as per the project requirements. Similarly, define the project specific roles, which might be who is going to do what and when, and who is going to be doing for example 3D modeling, who will be doing documentation, who will be uploading the files, who will be sharing the files. You should define those roles and responsibilities and document them as well. Now, as I said, so we have to do this assessment matrix. Assessment is for one purpose, to understand which user needs what kind of training. Because unless and until you know who knows how much today, you will not be able to. Because this is biggest mistake what people do is, you feel that you want to move to BIM and you go and ask for a Revit training. Give me 5 days of Revit training, and after 5 days of Revit training, you expect your people, you expect that team who went for the training to start doing BIM. No, it's never going to happen. They would need to have a training in a different way. Who needs it? First of all, you define that core team, we talk about it, define why that training is important, and how will the training be delivered. It's very important to have these schedules. Now, one based upon my experience in training and all that, I always tell people that if you are looking for training, make sure you interview the trainer before you hire the trainer. Make sure you tell and show the trainer what exactly you do. You walk him through your processes of your 2D workflows and detail levels to produce and everything, and what you do and what you don't do. Because you don't want to spend time on learning a software about something which you don't do. For example, if your team is not doing rendering, for example, why would they spend 3-4 hours or a half a day in learning rendering in Revit? Because that will be a default training curriculum that will be part of that. So it applies to every product, even Civil 3D or InfraWorks or Navisworks or BIM 360. You choose and you decide what you want. I mean, the person who's going to train and implement, he should know what he needs to train you for. Not exactly use the one single agenda for the whole world and think everyone's going to use it. No, you would need help. Okay. Now, start a pilot program and train the pilot team. This is very, very important. For most firms, it makes sense to run a BIM pilot. If you do dozens of small projects, for example, each year, consider completing one pilot and capturing, very important, capturing lessons learned from running several more pilot projects. A firm with just a few massive multi-year projects might prefer to capture lessons learned from an initial pilot as it happens, while also initiating all new projects in BIM, right? So this is very important to do a pilot to get started. Why pilot is important? Because you want to understand how BIM is going to impact your firm and your output, what is required. Now, to that, if you are new to BIM and don't know how to get started with BIM, there is an Autodesk Getting Started guide available to all users. You will be able to get it online and download it free. You just have to, probably Google search Getting Started guide from Autodesk. And once you have that, you will see that you'll be able to just, download this, and it will help you to see how we can get started with BIM with some steps about consideration, what you should be taking it. Consider, pilot project. And if you need help, look for this document, which says BIM Getting Started guide, right? Now, this is often a neglected piece, which is document preferred processes. And everyone, they do training, they do implementation, but they don't document. And most of the time, it is in the minds of the people who have been working. And there are occasions, and a lot of companies have faced this, where some of the guys, after maybe working in the company for maybe 6 months, a year, and 2 years, when they leave company for any reason, personal or professional, they leave the company, and the BIM stops. Why? Because the process was never documented. If that documentation is not there, it's not easy for your new hires or new people to jumpstart using BIM. Make a document, make a document in such a way that if there is if there's a new person joining, that document becomes an adoption, that document becomes a training. Now, when I say training, it becomes a training about how your firm is using BIM, not about how BIM is used worldwide. You don't need to worry about the worldwide portion. You need to worry about how it is using. So consider that document document the processes. Consider your preferred outputs and how your team needs to do BIM to support them. So it is tempting, always to create standards during or before running a pilot. we have seen a lot of companies doing it. I mean, you say, okay, we'll worry about BIM later. Let's create that, standards first. But sometimes you don't know what's possible in the software. You haven't even tested it. You haven't even piloted it. So whatever you are thinking about the standards at the beginning might change. It will evolve. And the standard document for a company is never an absolute document. It is always work in progress. Every year there's a new feature, there's a new functionality, there's a new script, there's a new API. You might change a process, it's going to change. So starting with standards could slow your team down and complicate the BIM adoption process unnecessarily. So pay attention to that. Now, when we talk about a process, so what does a process mean? So I just want to spend a few minutes on defining the process, because that's also an important aspect. Now, process, we have good tools, we're using them right. Process means, how do you deploy those tools and all that. So people talk about process as a project execution planning, or we talk about BIM execution plan, and how this is going to be deployed, how the collaboration workflows will be done, how and when we share the data effectively, and standardization, how does everyone know the proper format and deliverables. Now, if I put this in this picture, for example, the BIM execution plan defines uses of BIM on the project. For example, design authoring, cost estimation, or design coordination, along with the detailed design of the process for executing BIM throughout the project lifecycle. Project information, what is the BIM use, how are we going to do the information exchange, what are the data requirements, what are the collaboration procedures, what are the model structure, how the model will be maintained. If it is a large project, how are we going to divide the model, divide the work, divide the teams, assign the roles and responsibilities, how you're going to define that process. Similarly, if we're talking about digital project, for example, we talk about pre-design, whether did you start it in AutoCAD creating that 3D mass model, or did you start in Revit? How do you take it to schematic? How do you take it to design development? What detail level you need to have at different stages? What do you need to produce a document as a 2D? Do you need to produce a 3D walkthroughs? What are those processes you need to have in this one? Are you supposed to have a documentation, or documents created from a federated model, where you bring all the models together to create these 2D drawings? Or what are you looking for the project standards while making everything easier if they are followed? This is very important to create those standards while also going on all those kind of things. So while keeping all those things, I just want to highlight, because one of the standards, because we're talking about standards, one of the recently and global standard is ISO 19650 Part 2, which was launched. And I just want to talk about this a bit so that you understand what and how we can talk about the processes. So it all starts with the employer or a client determining their information needs by phase of project. The exchange information requirement. This is what we call as EIR, or exchange information requirement. Each organization tendering for a project service needs to develop a pre-contract, we call that as a BEP, or BIM action plan, that identifies how they will deliver the exchange information requirement. This is not modeling skills, but who will do what and when, with what technology to meet the EIR. A supply chain assessment summary should be submitted as part of the initial pre-contract BEP by each organization tendering for a project to allow the client to pick the best fit supplier. This will cover the competency of the prospective individuals undertaking information management function on behalf of delivery team, along with the prospective lead appointed, partly assessment of their entire delivery team's capability and capacity. Following confirmation of the preferred supplier, an arrangement is made, and the BEP is further developed with the master information plan that in turn is detailed by task information delivery process to explain how the detailed modeling will be undertaken and record information provided. This should involve a broad group of documents in the process. At each phase, models and the data EIR are submitted. Each and these are checked against the EIR to confirm completeness and validated completeness. Note, an employer should only pay the supplier for work done to meet the phases of delivery. Any work ever and above the needs is subject to non-payment models. Information continues to be developed at a greater accuracy on this one. So now, when we look at multiple ways how this EIR data is compiled, how the data, this is as per ISO 19650 on a project coming from a developer going to a pre-bid using the BEP and creating their information silos and working on those EIR data, capturing and submitting those and compiling with this ISO 19650. Now, this is one of the process. This is one of those standards available in the market. There are other, there are mandates available in multiple countries, and they also have defined the standards. There are standards which are created by the private developers, and then people have to comply with those and all that. Now, there is also another help from Autodesk available free of you to everyone, which is we call as Autodesk BIM development plan, or it's based upon enterprise or a project. So this is going to help you. You can also search for this about a BIM deployment plan. So this is going to help you. How do you define the type requirements? How do you define the parameters, and how do you define the level of development and everything on that? Now, a very important step, step number 7, is cultivate the BIM champions. Often forgotten after you do you start a project, and then the BIM becomes part and parcel of everyday life, and the champions feel neglected. So you will have to find some people in your firm who are excited about BIM, and perhaps they even learned about BIM as a part of their education or while working at another firm. Try to put BIM champions on every pilot project. Provide them with additional training and support they need to help teammates adopt BIM. So because you can have these BIM champions then train the trainer. So they can go for the training, then they do train your rest of the company themselves. That will be also very feasible for you. Now, as I said, train and transition other teams. It is important to provide training to people who are about to begin a BIM project. Definitely on there. There's a common mistake is to train the whole firm at once. You send everyone for training, and then you expect them to come back and start working. That's not going to happen. So it has to be a BIM, it has to be a training on a project basis, and you can define a course of training over the year, 1 year or 2 year, and then let people based upon who needs to take part in the BIM process on a project. They get trained gradually, and everyone does not need to learn everything at the beginning. People can learn how to add text to help on a project and to begin with, for example, or how to create a sheet without knowing how to do a 3D modeling. There could be there are companies where there are teams who are only doing 3D modeling. There are teams who are only doing documentation. There are teams who are creating sheets, and they are perfecting those people in their respective work. Then very important is to integrate with other models. So you will see the most benefits from the BIM when you share models with other firms and disciplines that are also working in BIM. Many firms that find that integrating models into a single shared model accelerates the coordination process and open door to a new level of collaboration. We have seen it often that there is a project, and in the project consultants use BIM and they produce PDF, and the contractors get PDF. They start AutoCAD, and that is where the benefit of BIM is not on the project. It is maybe just for that consulting firm who are actually taking the benefit, but the project is not getting the benefit what it deserves to have. Similarly, we are talking about expand and innovate with BIM. As you use BIM, it's very important. You will find that it enables new visualization. For example, using those 3D models for artificial, augmented reality or virtual reality, coordination, analysis capabilities. Look for ways to turn these new capabilities into value and new services offering for the client. Till 3-4 years back, nobody was able to provide a virtual reality model to a developer. But if you have a BIM model and you are able to generate a virtual reality model, that can be a new service you can offer. There could be multiple ways how you can think about utilizing that information. And more important, communicate the value of BIM to current and potential clients in your market, in your marketing, and let them know you are ready to meet the requirements of looming BIM mandates. Now, before we end, I want to have a call to action. Call to action is reach out to Autodesk representative or Autodesk partners in your city or town to know more details about your first transition to BIM, or if you're already a BIM user, how you can improve your BIM workflows which you have existing. So I know I have overshoot my time, but if we have some Q&A, if you have some questions, you can type them and I'll try to address some of them quickly. Let me see if there are any questions here.